Welcome back, everybody, to Retroactive, your place for all things fandom. It's post-Acolyte Day. Best day of the year. No, I'm just kidding. We'll be talking about Acolyte here.
My favorite Star Wars show.
Yeah. It's just a Star Wars show now, just in case anybody wasn't aware. But we've got some trailers to talk about first. We got lots to talk about, as usual. Real quick, let's go around the table here and introduce everybody. Josh, how you doing tonight?
Tired. Literally just going from work not long ago.
I can see it on your face.
Had some bomb-ass shepherd's pie my wife put together. It was delicious. And now I'm here, ready to talk about some movies.
Nice. Brandon, how's your night going?
Pretty good, but just like Josh, just fucking tired. I zoomed over here to get this all set up, so kind of frazzled. So I'm sorry, I'm just kind of tired.
It's all good, and I appreciate you guys being here. Ashlyn, doesn't matter how you're doing. I know.
No, dang.
How you doing,
Ben? 10 years in and the honeymoon period's over, right?
That's right. You can bleed that Sith crystal anytime you want. No one would blame you.
Oh, yeah. She's going to come up right behind me with a red lightsaber.
That's right.
All right. Well, we've got some fun Marvel news, a few different things. Let's talk about first trailer, Captain America, Brave New World.
Let's go.
Goddamn.
Couldn't bring up this specific image because, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get to that in just a second.
Can we just admire this for a few seconds? Because
for real.
Hold on a second.
God here.
Just a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah. Let's talk about this trailer. Let's start with our resident Marvel guy, Josh. What were your thoughts on this trailer?
This looks fan-freaking-tastic. I don't know why people are hating on this movie already. And I know it had a bunch of reshoots and stuff like that, but I think this looks good. It definitely has that Winter Soldier vibe to it. You can't go wrong. We had the Red Hulk, which was the worst kept secret in Hollywood. I would think it was equivalent to the whole Spider-Man trio and No Way Home. McDonald's, which is funny. You know how this movie was originally supposed to come. Well, this movie was supposed to come out this summer,
right.
Initially. So McDonald's already had the toy set up to release with the movie. So that's why it came out so early. So that's why I'm pretty sure Marvel's like, fuck it, let's just put Red Hulk in the trailer because McDonald's already spoiled it. But I'm excited, man.
Who's hating on this? I haven't heard a single thing yet. I
I
haven't looked, but
I noticed Andrew commented on some of my responded to a bunch of comments on my video for it. People are calling it woke, doing all that stuff. I'm like, how do they not read comics? Sam,
no, there was nothing wrong with that at all. It was the perfect trailer to me.
I don't understand any of the wokeness from this trailer. Is it just because there's a black Captain America? Is that why it's woke?
Most likely, yes.
Bro, that was woke what before COVID? Come on.
But the weird thing is people are saying that now, but nobody was saying that, at least from my recollection, when Steve Rogers handed him the shield in Endgame. Everybody's like, okay, cool, that's awesome.
I remember a little bit of it, but it wasn't. It
was minuscule. Yeah.
Very minuscule, and I hope to God it's still minuscule because there's no reason for it. It's literally comic accurate. There's nothing to be woke about.
That's the biggest thing there. Yeah.
I personally love Anthony Mackie, and I know that show. That show, it wasn't his fault. The reason why that showed the way it was, that thing got chopped up to bits because they were supposed to have a whole pandemic side of that show, and it was right when COVID was going on. So Disney's like, nah, we can't really do that. You can tell where they're missing beats in that show. So it's not really, not really his fault that show ended up the way it did.
They did a good job with the show for what it was and what they were dealing with. It's a decent show. It's good. Yeah. People just throwing the W word around because they don't have any vocabulary out of what Fox News tells them to use. So they're just using Fox News buzzwords.
That's mostly what I said. I literally commented and then copied and pasted to the same person because there was two comments back to back that were just woke this, woke that. And I was just y'all got to learn some new buzzwords.
Honestly.
You got to get a bigger vocabulary to express your opinion.
But here's the thing: if they weren't, then they would just be doing another Chris Evans somehow. One, it would undermine the thing of Endgame, and number two, it would be drawn out. We don't need to see Chris Evans. Maybe late in the future, but right now is
let this man have his time to shine.
Straight up, man.
The only thing I can agree with people on is, and it's not even anything that has to do with the woke stuff. I don't know how Sam is going to go up against the Red Hulk, considering he's refusing to take the serum. I get that. So I'm interested to see how they're going to play with that. But the best thing about this trailer is that they are freaking finally acknowledging that damn Celestial in the middle of the ocean that they've had since 2021, like since Eternals, and it's like nobody has talked about that since. And you see Sam flying around it, and everybody's thinking that that's Tiamat Island's going to be where they get antimanium for Wolverine and all that. So, which ties into the Thunderbolt. So we'll see. But overall, I'm hyped for this trailer.
Very true.
Brandon, your thoughts?
Man, I'm right there with Josh. Like I said a second ago, I think that this was like a perfect Marvel trailer. I mean, I don't see much that's wrong with this. There's nothing wrong. I mean, just everything has me hyped. I'm through the roof on it. And I'll say that I sorry, Josh, plug your ears, brother. I'm not really the biggest Captain America fan in terms of like the sequential movies. Some of them to me have been a little slow, but this one,
Winter Soldier, bro.
No,
I liked Winter Soldier for what it was, and I really loved Civil War, but if I had to pick, like, you know, the first Captain America movie was slow in portions, and there to me there was some slow parts in Winter Soldier as well. But overall,
I think he had the best trilogy in my opinion. Iron Man's my favorite, but I think Cap had the best trilogy.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I can
top Civil War though, because that's like it's like a mini
Avengers. That's Avengers 2.
No, and I'm not by any means shitting on any of this. Like, it's still top tier cinema, but I'm not gonna, I do have there's slow periods for me, and that's all I'm getting at.
For me, I just love the whole spy political espionage films.
And they do it very well, very, very well. It's not my cup of tea so much, so maybe that's why it doesn't jive with me as much as some other Marvel movies have. But and I know I'm way on the outside of that one. But all that to say, that this from what I saw in the trailer, I'm like all in 100%. The show itself was kind of like, for me, it was, it wasn't the best, it wasn't the worst, but it was solid. I think that they're surpassing that with this, and I think this is really what needs to happen, because we've waited for a long time for just that spark of Marvel to come back. And there's been some good stuff like Shang-Chi, whatever, I can't pronounce it right. But I will say, I'll there's been some really solid movies that have come out, post Endgame, but I really feel like this one has the potential to be something extraordinary. So I'm beyond hyped for this. Harrison Ford, bro. Oh my gosh. Like, I don't know when he's going to stop acting. I really don't, but I am so glad it has been, or it will be post this movie, because this is a role I feel like he's going to just do so well in. So
he looks so sinister in the trailer too.
Real. Yeah.
Like, I'm like, he's doing a good job.
And Giancarlo in this now too. You got Giancarlo in this. I feel like he's in everything, but I'm still just all for it.
He just got put in the film, and he was part of the reshoots, and he had so many parts in that trailer.
Yeah,
so
he did.
Like, that's kind of wild.
Yeah, I still don't really understand like what the point of his character is. Like, is he just like a rogue agent or something? I guess, but yeah, these are just the things that are spinning through my head. Like, I'm beyond hyped for this.
Someone said that his character is, as far as the name,
it's
based off of like an X-Force character.
Yeah, really? Washington something. I forget the name.
Yeah, but he's not like it. I don't think it necessarily means he has powers. I just think he's part of like like a rogue team type of thing that did stuff like X-Force type deal. But obviously, this version could be completely different from the comics. Type of thing. But yeah, I the thing I'm really enjoying about this is, like, this is going to sound a little silly considering we have like the Red Hulk showing up, but it's just also nice that we're getting more of a grounded story with this, which is something else I think that we need, because yes, we've had some really good stuff here and there from Marvel post Endgame, but a lot of it has been fantastical and mystical,
multiversal
type of thing.
A lot of CGI
to a certain degree with the multiverse stuff, but yeah, it's been way out there with a lot of this stuff, and now we're kind of reining it in. We got a more grounded. This is, like everyone keeps saying, it's like Winter Soldier, like another level of that. But kind of like it's what everybody wanted, Secret Invasion to be, because that felt like it was going to have that Winter Soldier feel, and then it just really fell flat.
We don't talk.
I know we don't talk about that, but especially the ending. You know, it was the best.
The real
part.
question is that how you guys are going to spend y'all's Valentine's Day in the theater watching Captain America: Brave New World? Because it comes out on Valentine's Day.
Yeah,
probably.
That goes without saying.
Probably.
But before I say anything else, Ashlyn, your thoughts on the Captain America trailer?
She loved it.
It is really good. I'm excited for it. Winter Soldier was probably my favorite, of the trilogy for Captain America, and then probably, I don't know, number 1 or number 2 out of all of the Marvel movies so far, and everything with phase whatever, 1, 2, 3, whatever we're in now,
11-7.
Yeah, pretty much.
Definitely top tier. Like I said, either 1 or 2 for me out of all of the ones we've had so far. So it looks really good. I'm excited to see at least one more trailer from it, but
you'll see at least 3.
The movie's 7 months out. They put this one out really early, so we probably won't see another one for probably about 4 months. Probably.
Yeah. I don't want to see too much. I know we'll get minimum 2 more trailers, and then
they're starting to show too much for Deadpool, I feel like, but that's just
but the one thing with Deadpool is that it's a lot of just features, and they're not necessarily showing new footage, and when they do, it's not anything important. So like I am kind of tired of it, and I'm trying to avoid things at this point with Deadpool, just because I'm just ready for it. I just want to go to the theater and experience it. But at the same time, I have noticed it
one more week, baby, and then we're all gonna be there.
So, that's right. We're doing a whole retroactive team up screening on.
I'll be seeing it twice that day.
Josh will be seeing it 2 times in a row in one night, which is not surprising at all. I think he would have done that either way.
I'll be seeing at 3:00 and then at 9:00 with you guys.
And then one more time at midnight just for fun.
Yeah, why not?
I'm off the next day, so I might as well go see it again the following day. We'll see.
Oh, Lord.
That would not surprise me at all.
The only other thing is that I was going to say earlier when they were talking about Harrison Ford, definitely the acting looks great. As far as his age, the thing that always impresses me is the fact that how much they can de-age these people, even with just classic makeup and stuff. Just practical stuff, because you see him on screen and he's like, oh yeah, it's Harrison Ford from the last 20 plus years, and then you see a picture of them in real life and they look like they're halfway in the grave, and you're just like, how do we just the makeup
you're not wrong.
Be this thick?
Yeah, you're not wrong. I was real skeptical when they were like, yeah, we're bringing Harrison Ford on for this character, and it's not because I think he's a bad actor, obviously.
Yeah.
It's just you don't really know what to expect with Harrison Ford, and because he's getting up there in age, you're just like, if nothing else, it's like you're running the risk of running into the same problem that you did with the previous actor of what happens when something happens to him.
Fair.
And then and also there's also a certain degree was as he's gotten older, maybe he doesn't always try as hard, but just a little bit I've seen from this trailer, it looks like he's actually in. You know what I mean? Like he's all in on this, which is a nice thing to see, because he could have easily shown up and phoned it in, type of thing, just being like, hey, I'm just, I'm Harrison Ford, I can do whatever the hell I want. I love that they kind of did that roadie joke thing like they did from Iron Man 2 when Cap shows up and he sees Harrison Ford and he's like, oh, I see you lost the mustache and everything like that. And he's like, yeah, I had to lose the mustache or lose the election. And that was their way of, poking fun at the fact that it's a different actor, just like they did in Iron Man 2 with Rhodey. Yeah. And I've always loved that little jab. So
do you think we'll see him in Thunderbolts as well?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I think so. My question is, when everything's said and done, and I kind of brought this up during we were talking about this during Toy Quest. Do we think that he's going to permanently become Red Hulk by the end of this, or do we think that he's going to actually be, the back and forth type of thing that will get Harrison Ford in the future?
He goes back and forth in the comics.
Well, it's not that I don't think he could.
He's able to control it, and he can turn to the Hulk and have all the intellectual stuff that he has and all the military training as the Hulk.
Yeah,
so I think since we've seen the other 2 Hulk-esque creatures in this show be able to turn back, that there should be there's been more now. I forgot about She-Hulk. So 4 total can turn back. I don't see why that would be a thing where he's the one that gets stuck with it being permanent.
It was just something I thought about because I'm trying to think of him actually being like longevity wise with this character.
Sure.
And having to show up for multiple, movies, or if he popped up in a series or whatever happens in the future, and them actually being able to get Harrison Ford every single time they need him. Yeah. Just he's an actor that I would think was least likely to sign up for something like that. That popped in my head was I was like, well, I guess they could go around it if he's just like, oh, it's kind of like when Hulk, took over and he just decided he was going to stay as the Hulk for, what was
2 years,
2 years or something like that. So
it could be like that.
Yeah.
This movie though, I feel so bad for Anthony Mackie because this man can't take a break. His show got messed up because of COVID. And now days after his trailer for his new movie comes out, where you see the president get shot at, something similar happens in real life. Like, this movie cannot catch a break. I feel so bad for him.
That was unfortunate timing. Yeah,
I guarantee you he was like, what the fuck, man?
He's like, you know what? I'm done. I quit.
Yeah.
I'm not trying anymore.
Bucky gets the shield.
He's like, fine, y'all get what you want.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next Marvel one. We've got Agatha All Along, also dropped a trailer prior to Captain America coming out. This has been not like a super long in development type thing, but we've been hearing about it ever since the end of WandaVision, essentially, which is, further out than I like to realize.
I love this how Josh and me just started bobbling our heads to the theme song. Right.
Yeah, so this seems like an interesting show. Like the trailer surprised me in a sense because I was like, is it just going to be kind of like WandaVision where it's going to be, just real quirky, which I mean, there is still that feel to a certain extent, but it does seem like they're going a bit darker. Obviously it's Coven centered and her recruiting these other witches or whatever's going on. Obviously we know only a little bit at this point as to what's happening in this, and there's this whole mystery of is Wanda dead type of thing, and I'm not sure if we're gonna really flush out that whole part of the subplot in a sense, or if it's more just in the subconscious because of she was stuck in this whole role that Wanda put her in at the end of WandaVision. So there's a lot of questions. It's going to take a little while for us to figure things out. I think it comes out in around dead, which makes sense. That looks nice.
Yeah, she ain't dead.
She ain't dead. Yeah, I mean, I don't think she is either.
What statue is that from?
Ashlyn, you're our resident witch. I'm gonna start off with you.
This is the hot toy figure.
Oh, is that what that is? That's cool.
Yeah. To go with his Dead Strange. What did you think of this trailer?
I'm excited. I have a lot of questions. I need to know how she ended up in this role, being the cop, and they kind of allude to the fact that she's still playing in the role that Wanda set her up in a sense. They talked about it in the trailer. So I'm very interested to see what all that means and everything like that because of how the show ended. She obviously wasn't a cop. So where this whole role comes into play now that, Westview and all that's gone. So I don't know. I'm interested to see how she ended up where she's at now versus where we left her in WandaVision, and super interested to see the whole Coven side of everything and the Witch's Road, which I saw while we were looking at Wanda comics today for Scarlet Witch, that there's actually a comic, whether it's a mini series or whatever it is, that was called The Witch's Road. So I might have to read that before this comes out to kind of see what that's all about as far as this Witch's Road, because apparently it seems like they're going to be taking from storyline, whether it's appeared in comics before back in the day or if it's just from this modern comic. I don't know. So interested, really like to see where things are going with this. So I have high hopes. I'm excited.
And I know you're excited about April showing up.
Oh my God. Yes. Super excited. Love her.
Why can't I think of the actress's name? I always call Aubrey Plaza.
Yeah.
I always call her April. Because she's basically just different versions of April.
Mm-hmm.
See. Brandon, what did you think?
My first thought was, holy fuck, they're still doing this, because you haven't heard anything about it for a long time. It's just been like, I thought they canceled it. But for me, it's one of those things that's like, is it necessary? No, but could it be cool? Yes. Just because, like, we're starting to get into the whole side character start, the shows and whatnot. And while I'm not too big of a fan on the way that they do that sort of stuff, I am open to it. And I am, excited in my own right to see where this goes and what it does. It's not really my cup of tea on this front, but I could see this being really good, especially if they do what we thought they were going to do with WandaVision and usher in Mephisto and Ghost Rider later on down the line. This would be a good branch to do so, since we're kind of going into the depths of the Coven itself. And, you got to have a main villain. And this show, I'm sorry, WandaVision, Agatha was the main villain. So let's go a little bit further. I want to see a little bit further. I want them to go a little bit, into more villains that we haven't seen yet that really need to be in the MCU. That's my biggest hope from this show, is that we do get either Mephisto, Ghost Rider, or the both of them introduced to the MCU.
Yeah, eventually Mephisto has to show up. Like,
has to.
Ironheart.
It's maybe. I mean, it would translate a lot. It would translate a lot better with this show than I think it would Ironheart. But I mean,
they already confirmed he was in Ironheart.
Is Ironheart
when
still
did this
happening?
happen?
That's another one I've heard of in a long time.
They wrapped filming for it and everything, and they're like, he's in Ironheart.
I thought that got shelved, so I wasn't sure.
I'm with Andrew. I haven't heard it.
They're still putting it out. I don't know when. They finished filming. They wrapped it. We'll probably find out more next week at San Diego. But
what a weird choice for that.
Yeah,
we're supposed to be the whole, because the Red Hood's the villain of that show, and he's working for Mephisto. It's the whole technology versus magic, supernatural type thing.
Okay, all right, I guess that's just it just was like
oddball, kind of an oddball. But yeah, I'm with you on that. I just, how big of a Ghost Rider fan I am. So anything that gets us closer, I'm all for.
Bringing back Nicolas Cage. No,
bro, I would be about it. I'm sorry. I would be about it.
I like Ghost Rider.
If he's not in Deadpool, I'm going to be upset.
I know.
I hated Spirit of Vengeance, but that first one was just like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man's. It's just, at this point, it's like, that's a classic,
It's just fun.
You don't think about it as a kid. You're just like, it's Nicolas Cage as Nicolas Cage in Nicolas Cage the movie. But I loved it as a kid. It's nostalgic for me, but that's my own little selfish endeavor.
I think people would have had less hate for it, honestly. And this is going to sound dumb, but less hate for it if he didn't have the ridiculous accent in that movie.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think if it had just been like his normal voice, like, I think people could have probably excused a lot of the other stuff,
because the story and the plot in the first one were pretty good. I mean, it was the second one that is like, that should never have happened. It was so
I've
boring.
never seen the second one, to be honest.
It's very boring. It's like, it's not even like, if you got nothing better to do, watch it, but otherwise it's just like, it's just very bland.
You would enjoy Slaughterhouse before you enjoyed that.
I don't care if Nicolas Cage shows up like Deadpool. I don't even need him to show up like full on, Ghost Rider. I just need to see him walk across the screen. You know what I mean? Just like, he just kind of like looks at the cameras like, sup, and just like walks away. Like, that was.
I'm Nicolas Cage.
Like, kind of how Sam Elliott's character was, and be like, okay, I'm passing the torch.
That would have been cool, but they're definitely not doing that now. I can tell you that. Like, but as far as like a future one, maybe if they took a little something from that with the whole Sam Elliott thing with the old Ghost Rider with the horse, which that part was always cool to me. Something like that. But if they do a new one, I have a feeling that it could be more of the car version. I can't remember the comic character's name, but it's not the original Ghost Rider. It's like the second iteration or something like that.
Yeah,
I have a feeling that's the route they'll go.
Not Johnny Blaze, correct?
Not Johnny Blaze. Yeah,
I can't remember his name either, but I know who you're talking about.
I know he showed up in like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I never watched that, and I know that that's like not really canon in a sense. So I think they could still do it and do a good job with it. But let's get back on track. Josh, any thoughts on Agatha before we move on?
Yeah. Do we need this? It looks fun. Don't get me wrong. I'm a huge WandaVision fan. I think it's gonna be fun. It definitely exceeded my expectations. I didn't know what to expect from this show. And Aubrey Plaza is great. The cast looks great. It looks like it'll be fun, and it's perfect for the whole spooky vibe for Halloween. My main concern is they're building up all this hype, all this momentum for Deadpool with Deadpool, and then this is the first thing to come out after it. And I really think Disney and Marvel should have been a little more smarter and maybe like, hey, maybe this should not be the first thing after Deadpool if you want to keep that momentum going, because you got people riding high for it. Now they're kind of getting hype for the Captain America. But this whole show was made in that whole mindset back then where they're like, let's just make stuff for the sake of making it. And I feel like it's a bad move, honestly. Like the show might be fun, but I feel like it's all overall it's a bad move to put out right after Deadpool. I feel like they're gonna shoot themselves and like they're gonna hurt them. Like they're gonna do more damage than good with this show.
I mean, it's possible. I
could be wrong. I could be wrong, but I just based off where Eberay's at and the whole superhero fatigue, which there really isn't, because if that was the case, Deadpool wouldn't be trending the way it is. But I just think they should have. This definitely shouldn't be the first thing right after Deadpool.
Well, what would they do then? I mean, like at this point,
it might have been better. This might sound silly, but it might have been better if they could have pushed out Ironheart first versus this. And I'm not saying that that's the saving grace, if you will, but it's more MCU honestly than this is. You know what I mean?
Much I hate to say, because I want all the Marvel content I can get, and 9 times out of 10, I'm going to enjoy this show. I'm not saying it's going to be a bad show. I'm gonna watch it. I'm looking forward to it. I just think maybe they should have read the room a little bit, and this might have been one of the ones they just shelved. Kind of how Warner Brothers did with Batgirl. I'm not saying that this is going to be as bad as Batgirl, but I'm just like, you really don't. You're trying to fix the brand, and this has the potential to kind of set you back right after you kind of got ahead a little. I don't know if that makes any sense.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I think they're also focused on trying to release it around Halloween, and so it was like if they didn't release it now, they're going to release it a year from now. Like it's like a year and a half.
That's shelve it because like we don't. There's so much stuff going on, and they're about to announce if they've given us this many trailers today or this week, and then they announced the whole Russo brother thing today and whatnot. Like they're giving us so much news that you would think they would save for San Diego. Like they're saving something big for San Diego. I feel like so they're gonna have so much on their plate to look forward, and I feel like that's the stuff people are excited for, and this is kind of there. I feel like it's gonna end up being like Echo and stuff for people just kind of forget about it. So like, what's the point of putting it out?
Yeah, it's an odd choice. It's a weird year because we know that like Deadpool's this is the only thing we're getting at this point, right? Like
unless you count Venom.
No. This is the only MCU movie we're getting for the year at this point. And so it was like, to a certain degree, I'm like, okay, I kind of get it. Like you have all this empty space and you want to put something in it, but there might have also been something to be said of, let's take a little break after Deadpool and Wolverine because we're going to throw so much at them, with this one movie that I think that could have been possibly a good thing. Like I was always kind of the camp that they probably shouldn't have released Ant-Man 2 the way that they did. I understand why they did it. I know that there was the tie-in at the end, and eventually we get to Endgame, and we kind of now know why, in a sense, it had to happen. But at the same time, that movie always just seemed very unnecessary and out of place. And we could have honestly, as much as it would have sucked, we could have used the year or whatever it was to sit with Infinity War leading to Endgame, and you're just like stewing in it for an entire year waiting for that next movie to come out. And I don't know, that's just how I felt. So like maybe they could have done something like that with this, but I think that to a certain degree they might have been scared to do that.
Yeah, like I'm not trying to like crap on the show. I think it's gonna be a fun time. Like I said, it's perfect for Halloween. Has that spooky vibe to it. Catherine Hahn, that's her name, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
She's spectacular. I love her in almost everything she's in. So I think the show's going to be like, it's going to be a fun show. I just think from a whole business perspective, I just don't think it was the smart move. Like they should have had that break and then went straight into like Captain America. my opinion.
Yeah. What
You're
an
making
insane
sense.
career that lady's had. Because I see her and I just think of Step Brothers.
Same.
Oh God, yeah, that's fucking true. Damn.
What an insane career.
Well, it's to say what you were saying, Andrew, as far as like this year and everything. This has been a light year for movies. We literally were sitting around going, what the hell is going on this summer? There is no blockbusters really going on this summer other than...
not the same number of them.
Courtesy of your family-friendly strike.
That is a huge reason for it, to be sure. Like that's something that I hadn't thought of until you just mentioned it. That put a lot of stuff on hold, put a lot of stuff behind the mark, and just certain things just didn't actually come to fruition because of when the strike happened and how long it lasted with everything that was going on with the studios and stuff like that. So we're lucky, I guess, we're getting some of the stuff we are at this point, considering everything that happened. But it's definitely a light summer.
We got so much animation this summer, considering animation is still fighting, and so many animation houses are laying people off and masses and stuff. The animation community in that sector still is suffering from stuff. So I'm surprised we got some of the animated stuff that we did have come out.
Yeah, for sure. Let's keep moving forward. We've got the next trailer is for Gladiator 2, a sequel to a movie basically 30 years later. I think we're pretty close to that at this point. I don't remember a lot about this movie. I'm sure I've seen it. Probably caught it more on cable than I ever did watching it, on home video or whatever, because I was pretty young when this movie came out, very young. But Ashlyn, I know you were a pretty decent fan of the original film, so I'm going to start with you. What are your thoughts on this? Obviously it's not necessarily picking up where things left off, because you can't. But it's almost like it's I don't know if you want to say a soft reboot or whatever you want to say, or just a different story set in the same universe. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's definitely the same universe, because they got the daughter of the king back, the one that is in love with Russell Crowe's character in the first movie. So she's there. I don't know where her son is or anything like that, but she's there because she pops up in the trailer when it's going back and talking about Russell Crowe's character and everything like that. So it's not something I expected, especially this many years later, but it looks like they're staying really well with, you could watch them back to back. The tone, the visuals, everything seems to be staying the same. I was excited to see Denzel Washington pop up in a movie for the first time in a while.
Other than the Equalizer, cool. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I forgot. We didn't see Equalizer, but
I know.
Other than that,
Josh is still mad about that.
I'm sorry, Josh. Eventually we'll get onto it, but it's felt like Denzel has been kind of outside of that, before Equalizer had kind of stepped back a little bit, hadn't really been the hot ticket, for anything in quite a while. So it's cool to see him pop up. I'm interested to see his whole story and how that plays out. And then, obviously the look of Pedro makes sense. They've got him in all the garb and everything, so he looks like a gladiator. I'm interested to see, how his role plays out as far as, whatever he's doing in this is, I know he's not the gladiator, but he's playing he's of
general or something like that.
He's coming off very Caesar-y, seems kind of like people around him are going to end up betraying him and things like that. He's kind of coming off like the evil dictator, so kind of picking up where Joaquin Phoenix's character left off. So it all looks very much in line with the first movie and how that story played out. So I'm interested to see how this one's going to go. So that's my only thing that I can see as a criticism, is a lot of repeating story basis right now, because there's a lot of similarities. It kind of reminds me of The Mummy 2, where they were doing the exact same shots, just with different ways in the second one. but instead of visuals this time is like the story is having very similar plot points. So I'm hoping there's going to be something in the next trailer that we get that kind of gives us more of a distinguishment of this is an original story, not just kind of playing off the same tropes that were in the first one, which I'm sure they won't be. I'm sure this story is going to be different. Obviously, the lead character who's playing the new Gladiator is a very different storyline from what I can tell as far as what the original one with Russell Crowe was. I don't know why I can't think of Maximus. I was like, oh my God, I can't think of his character name, Maximus. So I definitely think that's going to be a very different storyline. But like Denzel's character is very similar to the guy from the first one that is the leader of the gladiators that won his freedom as a gladiator. So, but I can see some things with Denzel's character where his character is more political. I feel like he's going to have more to do on the politics side of ancient Rome. And obviously this is leading into something with Rome falling, is because they talk about it in the trailer that Rome has to fall. So that's kind of what's also giving me some Caesar vibes with Pedro Pascal's character. So I'm interested to see him do a dramatic role versus him being his goofball self all the time. So I'm hoping that seeing him, I can kind of, see him as the character and not as Pedro. So we'll see what happens.
Well, we still need to watch The Last of Us at some point because I think that would give us a better indication of his dramatic acting. But I understand what you mean in that regard. Josh, your thoughts on this trailer as well?
The trailer looked great. I'm not gonna lie to you. I do not remember the first one at all. Like you, I was very young when it came out. I don't even know if I've technically seen it. I feel like I have because I've seen like the posters and the DVD and stuff, like when you go to Walmart and things like that. But I do plan on watching it. I'm probably going to wait till we watch the original or the first one before this comes out because even though I don't really remember the first one that much, I'm sold on the cast alone. Like, they got a phenomenal cast for this film. It looked like a great time. I love that whole medieval, vibe when it comes to movies like that. You got Pedro Pascal, Denzel Washington. We just saw him in A Quiet Place, Human Torch.
Quinn.
Yeah, Joseph Quinn. Like it's phenomenal cast. So I'm here for it. I must not have
realized he was in that.
Yeah, he's the emperor. He's the villain.
Okay. All
so
right.
like I think I'm here for it, and it's gonna be interesting to see Pedro Pascal play a villain because what I gathered from the trailers, he is one of the villains of the story. So it'd be cool. I'm here for it.
It's interesting. Like the lead, I don't know who this guy is. They've like built this. I'm not saying he doesn't have credits, obviously, but I just don't know him from anything in particular. So they must have built the cast around him. Like they hopefully, they were just like, this is the guy we want. We want to, push him, give him a chance. We'll just build like a solid cast around him to draw people in and, give him that shot. So I don't know. Brandon, anything to add?
I mean, y'all kind of already said it. The cast looks fantastic. I really enjoyed the trailer, but and in the both of all of y'all, I don't remember much about the original movie. I remember watching it, but I don't remember, bits and pieces, details, all that sort of stuff. So I'm definitely due for a refresher before any more of this comes about. The timeline seems really cool to do it in, being that it is going to be around the fall of Rome, or so we think. Because as the trend says, every man thinks about the fall of Rome. So I don't know if y'all have seen that.
Roman Empire, yeah.
The Roman Empire, yeah.
Once a day,
Yeah. Which for me it's Egyptian Empire, but I guess tomato. But yeah, no, it's it could be really good. I think it's going to be really difficult for them to capture the same level of hype that the first one had, because I do remember the the hype for this movie. My parents there's no way they would let me see it at that age, but but it doing something like 20 years later, like, and we talked about this with Twisters as well. It's gonna be hard to kind of recapture that. I think the casting's a great start. And I think the timeline's phenomenal for continuing this. I am curious why they're choosing to do it now, as opposed to 10 years ago or 5 years ago, but
Pedro Pascal.
Maybe so, and Joseph Quinn. But
yeah.
But it does have a lot of potential. I think they're gonna hit the ground running on this, and if they flop it, then they got no one to blame for themselves because they got the talent. It's just about the story and the writing at this point, and the action sequences, which I'm sure are going to be plentiful. Yeah. So.
Well, the original had a star-studded cast. I mean, you had Russell Crowe, you had Joaquin Phoenix, like they had, and the older actors, and I don't remember their names now, but they had crazy stacked actors for it when it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. This is a Ridley Scott film, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And did he direct the original too?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah.
That's all signs are pointing to yes for me on this.
Yeah. So like that. He's not, 10 for 10 with me, but Ridley Scott, if he's like actually behind the helm, not just producing or like a credit on certain things, like some of the stuff we've gotten with, I think like the Alien franchise and stuff like that. But if he's like actually
on Prometheus now, I love that film.
Doing this, no, I'm not saying that one in particular. I just mean in general, like because he always gets some sort of a credit with those, but he's not necessarily involved, But if he's actually hands-on doing this movie. That says a lot to me personally, because I think he's a fantastic director and a really good storyteller. Got another one, kind of like a blast from the past type of thing, but a different feel to it. Is we had a trailer drop for a new anime, Terminator Zero. I'll be honest with you, trailer wise, I don't know what's going on. Like, don't know where this takes place. If it's even really connected to anything we know before. And I'm sure it's more of like a loosely based connection in the sense of like what we know about the Terminator, but I don't think it's any sort of real continuation of a story. It's probably like its own universe, its own, storyline type of thing. I do think it's set in the future as far as I can tell, because we're seeing a lot of different Terminators, especially like half-skinned ones and things like that. The reason that I wanted to talk about this is like, I'm not the world's biggest Terminator fan, although I do think that T2 in particular. Oh, thumbs down for you, Ben?
I didn't even move. I literally still.
She's
not feeling it.
I do think T2 is one of the best action movies like ever made. To this day, it holds up. The rest of them are real hit and miss, but T2 arguably one of the best action movies. So Terminator, just the concept of the Terminator and the storyline and the whole Skynet thing, and obviously in today's world it's like very on the nose, but I've always been very interested in that. Like, it's such an interesting world that they created, and I think there's some really cool stories that can be told. So it's cool to see like an animated, especially anime style, like adult Terminator story that they're wanting to tell. So I'm very intrigued by this. I'm going to start with Josh. What did you think of this trailer?
Like you, I have no idea what was going on. I'm not even gonna front. I think they're entertaining. They're good popcorn flicks. So they're not bad. I've just never really cared for the Terminator films. They never really like grasped me like
Where's
that.
Where's that thumbs down, Ashlyn? Hit it up. Do it.
Interesting concept for sure. Interesting concept for a franchise for sure. I don't know what it is. It just never really gravitated and grabbed me, kind of how you are with Lord of the Rings. So, it kind of happens to all of us, man. Andrew took 20, 30
Cheap
years
shots
to finally
all
watch
around tonight,
Lord of the Rings. So, but it looks fun. I don't know what was going on. And I'm more so I prefer the live action ones. Like I said, I think they're very entertaining. I'm probably gonna get flack for this. I put them up there with like the Transformer films, they're just a nice summer blockbuster to watch, but it's fun. I'm excited for it.
Brandon has
stop. No, I was hoping no one saw that. I was just like, no, it's okay. Go on.
Go on, Brandon. Your turn. Roast me. Bring it to Poppy.
No, I definitely don't see it as anywhere close to the Transformers.
I'm not saying it's like Transformers, but like it's that summer blockbuster. It's a movie I can turn my brain off and just
I could definitely see them getting to that point. I don't think we're there yet though. But yeah, it's a strange concept to do as an anime, but I could see it working. I mean, I say anime loosely. I don't know if this is originated in Japan or not, but like, it's something that could work very well. It could be very dark and gritty and bloody, very bloody. I do hope that it's not necessarily tied to the others. If it is, then a very, very distant way away from those movies. Because what they have right now is just, to me, I look at it, it's just a blank canvas. It's going to be in the part of the Terminator franchise, whether inside the universe or outside of the universe. But I hope that they craft their own story instead of kind of, let's go back into the Connor Chronicles or whatever. It's like let's separate ourselves away from this. But that said, it does strike my fancy. I do love the Terminator movies and the whole franchise. I even watched that crappy Sarah Connor Chronicles. Some people like it, some people don't. I think it's garbage. But when it comes to doing kind of like a fresh take on something like this, it's either going to be really good and the fans are going to be after it all over, or it's going to be really bad. Considering the fact that this is a a franchise that really had its heyday in the 80s and has not captured that. Dark Fate got close, but it has not captured that for this generation. I'm kind of wondering, why are they making it for what generation are they making this for? And if they are making it for the older fans, why are you doing it in a newer style that's catered towards the younger generation? It's kind of confusing in my book, but I'm still like gonna go into it with an open heart and see what could be good about this. This might be very, very off from in terms of comparison, but I was a big fan of the Cyberpunk video game, and they heard they're announcing an anime, and I'm just like, why in the fuck are they doing this? This is kind of stupid. And it turned out to be like one of my favorite animes from that year, when that released, because it captured that universe so well, made me feel like I was in the video game still, but just hearing a different story in that same world. If they can capture that with this Terminator franchise, or with this Terminator, I'm going to call it an anime, then I think
it's from the animation house that it says at the beginning of the trailer. I'm pretty sure is a Japanese.
I saw it, and I remember being like, okay, I know this, but I can't remember anything that was from that specific house. So, but yeah, if it manages to do kind of like what the Cyberpunk anime did for the game, then I see this doing very well. And if not, it could just be one of those things that you scroll past on Netflix and never watch. So,
yeah, I mean, we've seen this a few different times with animes, especially ones that hit Netflix. Is these different animation houses, like from Japan and stuff like that, if they're able to get an IP or something like that, they will build a show around it.
Sure.
Doesn't matter if it's warranted or good or bad or whatever. Yeah. Like, there's obviously it makes sense of them doing Godzilla ones, but there's so many Godzilla ones, and just like a bunch of other big IPs that, like, if they're given the rights to do something, they'll be like, yes, let's do this. And like you said, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I think that this is one that, if they, like you said, they capture the essence the right way, this is something that could really, really work. I don't really know the voice cast on this. The only one I know that
I didn't look.
Rosario Dawson is
for real.
Huh. She shared it. It's the only reason I know, because she shared the trailer, and that's
I'm gonna look it up.
My eye. So I got to do a little bit more research on that. Ashlyn, anything to add to this?
Nope. Just basically didn't know this was coming until you showed me the trailer. I was always a big fan. I literally was just thinking as we were talking about the first time I saw Terminator. So, it was always kind of one of those movies that floated around. It was a very interesting, concept. So basically, if they do it justice and they do it right, the whole anime thing I can see totally working for this franchise, and like that platform working. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I agree. The trailer is completely fucking confusing. I have no idea what's going on. I literally looked at Andrew and it's like, so is he a Connor? Is this attached to the Connors? But I agree with Brandon. I'd rather see them step away from that and just have this be an original story, maybe somewhere else in the world. Like maybe they're in Japan. That would be kind of cool to see. Probably not what they're going to do, but just, saying, like, seeing it take place from a different, landscape, different area.
Yeah, not the American wasteland that we always see in these movies and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that.
it would be interesting to see it from a different perspective like that. So yeah, I mean, I'll definitely watch it. I would say I'm a pretty decent Terminator fan myself as well. Always enjoyed the movies, so we'll have to see.
From what I'm quickly reading here, just kind of like what plot that they have given a little bit of. It seems that this takes place in 1997.
Oh,
and basically it deals with, from what I can tell, sending somebody back in time to try to help try to stop the launch of Skynet, which is a pretty cool, take on it.
Okay.
As for casting, there's like 5 people on IMDb right now, and one of them, the main one who plays the Terminator, is Timothy Olyphant, which is
that's right.
Strange choice. But and then the other 3, aside from Rosario, I do not know. Sonia Mizuno, I don't know if I'm butchering that name, and Dowd and Andre Holland. I've never heard of any of those people. So so very small casting if that's all that's there. I'm sure there's going to be more, but if that's the whole show, it could be good. Who knows?
Yeah. Brandon, I got to ask you, since you mentioned you're like a pretty decent Terminator fan, and the name was escaping me. What's the name of the Terminator one with Christian Bale?
Is that Genesis?
Is that Salvation? I think that's Salvation.
Salvation.
Yeah.
What did you think of Salvation?
Bro, so funny story. That was my first Terminator movie.
Really?
Yeah, believe it or not. So going in fresh, that was my thing. Like, I love that movie. And that's kind of what kickstarted me. Now seeing all the others, I see why people think it fell flat. It still holds a special place in my heart, but I am very much on the same fence.
I've always felt like that one deserved a sequel, personally.
I will say
the concept was really good.
It's solid, but in the grand scheme of the other Terminator movies, Winter Soldiers. I'm just kidding. I'm so sorry. I had to. I love you, Josh.
You're gonna get killed.
No, anyway, no. No, in general, it does fall flat when you. Oh my god, brother! Oh, that's a little dramatic.
But it was just,
we're here.
Cool getting to see, like, actually in the post-apocalyptic world, you see an adult, Connor and everything like that, and like them dealing with things, and it's going in a different direction, and it was just such a. In my opinion, just such a fresh take on it versus like just constantly rehashing the thing going back in time, and they got to stop it and all these different versions of it.
Exactly.
It's just, can we not, so, and everyone was like, no, it was so bad. I'm like, I think we saw 2 different movies. I don't know.
Yeah, it was a solid. That one actually was one of those summer flicks, like we were talking about earlier, and I will compare that one to Transformers because that like literally launched, if not the same week. I remember it launching like back to back from like was it Revenge of the Fallen or something like that.
Yeah,
the second Transformers. It was like right there with it in 2009, and I remember seeing both of them, like if not like in the same weekend.
Right, so it had a feel to it.
It did, and it was. But yeah, that was my introduction to Terminator, other than knowing Arnold being in Terminator. But then going back later on and doing the whole binge of the series every
goddamn
episode. But yeah, going back and then rewatching them, I do understand the fandom's complaints with it, and understanding that it does inherently fall flat, but I still love it. I mean, that's just me.
Fair enough. I was just curious because I it's a lot of
I'm glad you brought that up because nobody talks about that movie ever. Like, I don't know if it's we pretend it doesn't exist or people have just forgotten about it, but yeah, nobody. That's the first time someone.
I feel like the one people pretend doesn't exist is Genesis.
Very fair take. Very fair. Yeah.
I never call it by its name. It's always Genesis to me.
Yeah, I don't blame. Yeah, it's
But
I didn't care for that one. Go ahead. Onward.
So we're going to talk. It's been a couple weeks, but Josh, Ashlyn, and I all went and saw A Quiet Place Day 1 in theaters. This was Josh's first experience in Dolby Cinema. I'm pretty sure he had a good time.
Fantastic.
Yeah, he said it ruined other theaters for him, like wholeheartedly. But I thought we'd talk at least a little bit about it before we move on to like the Acolyte and stuff like that. Josh, you are a big horror guy, A Quiet Place fan. We're new to this. We watched it all right before the third movie came out. What did you think of this installment to the series?
Well, first off, I just want to thank you guys for joining me, even though I know you're not horror film people, and for the fact that you guys took the time to watch the first two before we're going to see the film. I appreciate that. It was a which you know what, you ended up really liking it, so it was a win-win.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong, because it's not. It's like I say horror, but it's really more of like a suspense, like thriller type of thing. And
there's a lot of emotion, and it's they're all sad. Like, let's just be real.
It's all sad. Movies. Yeah, it's
like this movie was really sad. Like it had me feeling things like I was like I just wanted to see monsters destroy a New York area, and it's just like the entire time I'm just stressing this cat, and it's just like But
literally first like 2 minutes of the movie, Josh goes, "They better not kill that fucking cat." And it was like.
They better, and there were so many. That cat put itself in so many situations where it could get killed. I'm like,
it went through all like 8 out of its 9 lives. I swear to God.
You better not. And I think the movie was great though. I don't know where I put it amongst the other ones because it's in the same world, same franchise, but it feels like such a different movie compared to the other ones because there is one link pin between them with one character, but that's it. You're following a whole new group of people, a whole different side of it. And a whole different, just a view of it. So it does feel like a whole different movie than the one with the John Krasinski family. But I think it was really good. Very, very heartfelt. I do feel like if that actually happened, there was a lot of what the hell are people doing moments. Like, I think that's how society would react. Like, are we allowed to mention spoilers? It's been out for a minute.
Yeah, go ahead. I haven't seen it, but
there's a scene. Go for it. It just happens. And everybody, it clicks in their head. Oh, they go based off sound. So everybody be quiet. And everybody's walking. And then it comes to a scene, and there's just a parade of people walking down the road, and they have their bikes and their rolling backpacks and making all kinds of noise walking. And then they're shocked when the giant creatures start creeping around the buildings and jumping and start attacking everybody. I'm like,
it was so funny.
I'm like, are people that dumb?
Funny.
Yes, they are, Josh. People are genuinely that dumb.
To give you a little bit of context, Brandon, so everyone's hiding. Then there's an announcement that goes over from like the military saying everyone needs to make their way to this dock site because we're gonna boat you off of the island and everything like that because they're all stuck in like Manhattan or whatever. And so after that happens, and they've kind of driven because they're blaring this over a speaker, they're driving all the creatures away. Everyone's like, oh, okay, we can do this now. And you see everyone flood, like slowly, but flood out of all the buildings and houses and everything. And then they're just like all casually walking down the street. But then as you saw people with like their luggage. There was a person in a wheelchair, which, I mean, justified. Like somebody's going to be in a wheelchair, but you're hearing all the noises that everyone's making plus the stepping. And he just
pissed me off, honestly.
Yeah, he literally goes, "You gotta be fucking kidding me."
It was just like, I was like, people are like, "Where's your common sense, man?"
Yeah,
it was almost comical, really. Like, but because you're like, this is exactly what would happen. This is exactly how things would play out. Moments like this would happen, especially after only like 24 hours or whatever, or 48 hours of things going down because people are just stupid. And but so in that sense, it was very realistic.
Fair enough.
I will end my take on this for all those who are hesitant on watching because of the cat. And you're like, they better not kill the cat. I don't want to see a movie where they kill the cat. The cat is a survivor.
Yes.
So we're all going to worry about it. The cat lived, and I left that theater a happy man.
Haslin, any thoughts on this movie? Obviously, we're newer to this franchise than he is, but I think you and I both enjoyed the first two movies, and we enjoyed this one as well.
Enjoyed. Stressed out the whole time. Hadn't been that stressed since Bird Box, but
yeah.
But it was good. They were both really good. Really liked the story and everything like that. And this, like Josh said, this other one is just like a whole different story. I was not prepared for all the emotionality, but the connection that you get to these new characters with Joseph Quinn and Lupita is just like amazing. Like, never thought we would get that deep into their stories. This one definitely comes off more more like a drama in a sense. It's very emotional and everything like that. So it's got the horror element, and that's like the thing driving it is of course the monsters, but there's so much good storytelling that happens, that all the emotional moments and everything, I feel like that was more at the forefront than the scary moments were at times. And it was so good. I was so taken aback. It's definitely not something that I will like go out of my way to watch all the time, but it was really good. And I do kind of find myself feeling like I want to watch it again, even though it was so stressful. All of them were, but this one was it was really good dramatic acting. And I'm a sucker for just good acting like that, even if it's sad.
As humans, we love to put ourselves in stressful situations when it comes to movies. Like me, I have a bad spider phobia, and I watched that new Sting movie. Nope. I'm terrified of spiders, but yet I watched a spider movie. You know, it just happens.
Not happening. Yeah, I can, to a certain degree, I can understand why some people might have been disappointed when going this movie, because they're hearing, oh, Quiet Place Day One, and we get that scene at the beginning of number 2 where it is day 1, but for the family, and it's, you know, it's very action heavy, and there's a lot of chaos and everything like ensuing, and we do get that to a certain degree, and I think people were expecting this to be closer to like an action heavy movie of the franchise, as opposed to refocusing on a different set of characters, and still it being a human drama piece than it was. But that's not how I feel about it. I'm just saying I can understand why people might have been disappointed. I think it was really good, because the difference is for this is like, as opposed to with the last 2 movies, and you're setting around a family, you're starting with brand new characters, these characters that don't have family around them and stuff like that. So it's kind of just, especially it starts off with just Lupita's character pretty much by herself, more or less, and you have to learn to care about that character quickly, and like build a connection over the course of this movie, so you actually care about what happens to these characters. And I think in that regard, they more than did that. It definitely has like those payoff moments, if you will, and those like heartbreaking moments. And like I said, it's very much like a human drama mixed into this monster-esque movie. On top of it, it's a very layered type of piece of cinema. So it's, like Ashlyn said, it's something that I'll probably go back and rewatch at some point. I'm not like chomping at the bit to do it right this second, because I don't feel like being stressed out. But other than that, I think this is a really good franchise. I think it should continue as long as they can find like interesting characters, interesting stories. I feel like if we could at least get one more just to round out the family story from the original first 2 films, I think that could be fine. We don't necessarily need this to be the next, 6-7 movie franchise just because it's a monster film type of thing. I think like at least one more film to wrap everything up would be great, but who knows what may happen. And I don't necessarily know if we're ever going to get the full-fledged, like, I think people thought they might get the whole, like, where did they come from, and all their questions answered from this one. I don't think we're necessarily ever going to get that. I think that the point of it is to leave that bit of mystery, and for you to decide as the viewer to kind of fill in the gaps where you can, and it kind of adds to the suspense and the thrill and all that kind of stuff. Like, that's the thing that I think people need to learn to accept with certain films, is like, you're not going to have everything spoon-fed to you, and you're just going to have to get over it. But yeah, definitely a good movie overall. Ratings wise, what would you guys give it out of a 10?
I think about an 8.
A question mark out of 10.
Yeah, Brandon, you seem real quiet on this.
Well, what are we talking about? A Quiet Place. I'm just playing the part, bro.
Goodbye. No. Ashlyn,
I'm with Josh. I would say about an 8. It was really good. That's probably my highest ranking of any horror film that you'll ever hear me give. And then, of course, for the fans of this film that want to experience that insane terror in real life, both California and Florida will be having this house for Halloween Horror Nights. So come check that out. I will go through it. I'm probably going to scream a lot, but I will go through it.
Yeah, that's
I'll be there to hold your hand, Andrew. Don't worry.
Please
I might break it.
Yeah. When she holds my hand, it's like, you know. That's why whenever we're watching something even remotely suspenseful in the theater, I'm like, nope, you're not. It's like, you're not. You can hold my arm, but you are not holding my hand because my fingers are going to crack. I'm with y'all. I think it's pretty much just across the board, like 8 out of 10. Really, really solid entry into the film. I'm not 100% sure where I rank them, 1, 2, 3 type of thing, but over time, I'm sure I'll have a better idea. So, well, we're getting to the end of Josh's time here on the show because he's lame and doesn't watch Star Wars.
Hey. I only watched the good Star Wars. So.
Hilarious.
Which is the prequel.
So, before
the sequels, the sequels.
The sequels, yes. All the sequels.
That's God tier. Last Jedi, God tier.
That's right. Top tier. Before we move on, Josh, where can the people find you?
You can find me over at McCoy Culture on YouTube and on Instagram and on Toy Quest 101 with this fine gentleman and this beautiful woman right here on Toy Quest 101 every Friday night with Miguel.
That's right. Be sure to check out those channels. We do a lot on that, and I appreciate you being on, bud. I know you got some stuff to do, so we're gonna let you head out. All right, man.
Y'all have fun with your 3-hour stream talking about the Acolyte.
That's right. See ya.
Bye.
I was like, that was great.
Fantastic.
Oh, geez. Okay, so we are going to talk about mostly the finale of the Acolyte. We talked about last episode was the first 5 episodes, something like that. So we're talking about the last 3. For me, it's mostly about the second to last episode and the final episode because I think those are the most you have to talk about. Of course, again, we are talking about the Acolyte. If I can get that to pop up. There we go. Acolyte. Now, obviously, this is from the final episode. I'm going to go ahead and say it now. Spoilers, because we cannot talk about this without talking spoilers. I do want to touch on a little bit of episode 7. Brandon, what were your thoughts about episode 7 with us finally getting the, explanation from the ulterior, perception, if you will, with what happened on the kids' planet?
So with regard to this episode as a whole, I really the thought that just scene by scene that kept going through my head is I wish they didn't do this on episode 7. Mm-hmm. I wish they just did it as one continuous push because otherwise it just feels so forced. I think they could have condensed the crap out of that episode and really just merged it with episode 3 to where you didn't have to have that split up. And they did it just for the writing process, and I understand that. But to me, it didn't work at all. I see what they did, but it seemed like they just drug it out. And I just don't see why they drug it out when there was a lot more that they could have expanded upon with those characters to make you really fall for them. And that's been one of my biggest concerns and gripes about this show as a whole is there's so many characters and not enough backstory. And I say enough backstory. You don't need a ton, but there's just not enough there to make you go, I like that character. It's just like, oh, it's a Wookiee. Oh, it's Carrie-Anne Moss. Oh, it's this guy.
Oh, they're dead.
Yeah, literally. Oh, they're dead. And in episode 7, it made me feel like a lot of those characters were pointless because they didn't do that whole set up to them dying. Mm-hmm. They killed them off, then explained their characters, and it's just like, why are you doing that now? That was one of my main complaints. There's a few of them that I do have written down. I like that they did go back and explain a little bit of that about answering the questions that we had from episode 6, but in general, the whole thing really fell flat for me.
And Carrie-Anne came back on the screen. I'm like, well, Brandon said finally, but then it still felt like we really didn't get much. I was like, oh,
seriously,
well, that was kind of short. Okay, so she was here, but that was still not a lot.
What a waste of an amazing actress. That's
honest to God.
That's
yeah.
my biggest complaint. That's one of my biggest complaints of this series.
Yeah.
That is one of the biggest wastes of an actor I've ever seen.
I'd say it's there's been quite a few wastes for characters in this show. I mean, you have a lot of them have come in forms of teases, and I'm sure we're going to talk about one big one later on. But
they're who?
I don't know. Yoda.
Yeah, but, I mean, a little bit. Yeah, we're going to talk.
I guess so. Yeah, but no, yeah, I'll just hit some of them from my notes from last week because otherwise I'm going to be all over the place jumping from one point to the next. The first one that really like threw me for a loop was why was a Wookiee looking for the Force with a metal detector? Like, it's a small one, but I'm like, the fuck is happening right now? That was the first thing. I'm just like, what? It was literally a play-by-play shot. He's like, you know, I think it was Torben asked Soul, what is it that we're doing on this planet? What are we looking for on this planet? And he said, there's a vergence of the Force. And immediately the camera shoots to him searching for the Force with a metal detector. I'm like,
I must
guys,
that. Like,
yeah,
the metal detector thing.
It's in like the first 5 minutes.
What they were trying to do was like he's looking at minerals or something.
Man, I hope so because
but
you know it's too late now. You can't go back and explain it. It's all up to our imagination. But that's like that's how the shot was set up, and I'm like, brother, what? So small,
it's like
but
it's like the Ghostbusters thing with the like
straight
the
up, bro. Yeah. It's not a metal detector, it's a Force detector. Like, yeah, that was just one thing I wrote down, and I put like 3 question marks next to it. I said metal detector for the Force question mark. I don't know if y'all felt this way. I felt this way. And I haven't seen anybody else talk about it, but Soul seemed mad creepy in this episode.
Oh, yeah,
like straight up the way that he's like just, you know, searching for these kids. And then he straight up tells like Carrie-Anne Moss's character, hey, I just have a strong feeling that she needs to be my Padawan. I'm like, that's mad creepy. I don't like that. And I'm just, yeah, and you don't even hear about that like in the rest of anything in Star Wars. Like I have a strong feeling they need to be my Padawan. It's like, you know, going back to episode 1, Qui-Gon's talking about Anakin, and he's just like, I feel the boy is the chosen one. And, you know, he's like, I'd like to take him as my Padawan, but there's not like, I need her to be,
yeah,
you know,
it seems like they were the only thing that I can like think is like, he's having like, they're trying to play off that he's having like a paternal longing.
In a sense, child. Yeah, like, which is still a little weird to me.
It's still creepy. Trust me. It's still like, oh, I'm going to kidnap this girl from her family to be my to be my Padawan because I also instantly saw her and now I want to be her papa. Like,
yeah, and that's the thing too. There's no setup.
Like, it's not grooming. It's the Jedi way. It's okay. It's like
that's kind of the way I took it in a really roundabout way. That's kind of where my mind went. It's like.
Andrew, you just started something. The trolls are going to be all in the comments now.
Yo,
congratulations.
But you know, that's exactly where my mind was. Is like, you know, and kind of in those words too. It's just like, this seems very groomy, and I don't care for it. You know, that part aside, I felt like I liked that we got to see a lot more of the characters that they had introduced. I was very disappointed with Torben because I was like, dude, this guy's like in a meditated state in episode 2 and 3 or something like that. But it just it's just like, okay, all because he's a whiny little bitch. Like, you know, it's like, God, you know, and it kind of gave me flashbacks of Ahsoka. So I kind of overrode that a little bit to understand, you know, maybe it's something that he has to grow into or whatever, but we didn't see that. We just see him being whiny until, you know, he whines and whines and whines and, you know, it just
and causes a calamity essentially.
Essentially, yeah. I mean, you know, but that aside, even now, after we're done with the show, I can say that those characters, those Jedi that they introduced, that they hyped up for us, still had absolutely zero substance. It just, it, you know, you don't see them really have personalities. A few of them do, but it's very, I don't know if it's the acting that's bland or if it's the writing that's bland or a combination of both, but that's a big thing for me, is if you're introducing so many characters, give them personality so they stand out from each other. And there just wasn't enough of that across the board with the whole series. I could say that now, but I mean, I was seeing it way early on. But that part is a big disappointment, because I was really hoping to latch on to more Star Wars characters that I love. And there are good things I can pick about, a few of them as well, but the majority of it is just kind of bland across the board for that. So,
well, it's funny because like when it first starts out, first episode, and you've got May, and like she's hunting them down and everything, you're like, oh, this is really interesting. Like, this is cool. And you got Carrie Ann Moss's character, and unfortunately she dies, and like you're upset about it.
yeah.
But then you're like, okay, where are we going from here? Like,
Yeah.
what's the story? And then like they had the coven thing, and that was interesting with episode 2 and all of that. But then it's just like you're getting thrown into the middle of this story and like what this calamity that happened.
Mm-hmm.
But so much is being withheld back
Exactly.
and saved for episode 7 before you get the full compass of what's happening, that the only people that you're getting attached to is May and Osha. And then a little bit of Soul, because, he's the third most, involved character here. But like the rest of it is just, there's no attachment. Because
None.
just all you're doing is just watching them sift through dirt on this planet.
Yeah.
Samples. Like you never, and then like the whole time, like the bigger picture now of just the whole time, it's just the Jedi trying to fight off the Senate from getting control. So everything is secret. And because there's so many secrets, you're only getting a minuscule picture of what the overall story is supposed to be. And it's like, oh, now we're in episode 7 and everything is kind of makes sense. Like you feel like you're just getting to the meat of the story.
Yeah, and that last part you said there about, the Senate and stuff, I want to talk about later in episode 8, because I have a lot of points on that. From where I feel like that they really messed up and could have gone a great direction with this show. But yeah, I'll save that till we're talking about that point. But I'm glad you said something about that too.
Yeah.
I'm with y'all on the like the way that the story played out thing. It's like I kind of get that they were like, okay, we want to withhold the fact of the wrongdoing of the Jedi until we get later on, because people are automatically going to like side with the Jedi, especially since someone's hunting these people down, and we assume that, she's Sith, or she's clearly connected to Sith or whatever. Right. So we're trying to keep the Jedi up in the pedestal that everyone expects them to be. And then this is supposed to be like, we're taking the rug out from under them at the last minute, but it's like, we didn't accomplish that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You did and you didn't. Like you did prove that there was hubris and there was wrongdoing and there was terrible choices made and for X, Y, or Z reason type of thing. But it took too long for us to get there, and we should have just done it early on. It didn't have to be episode 1, but it should have been like 2 or 3 and explain this, because I wanted this. This was supposed to be. It was marketed, well, maybe not marketed, but like when it was proposed, it was talked about being, this is a Sith-centered show. This is going to be about a Sith and an Acolyte and whatnot. I understand that we're setting up a story of like who becomes the real Acolyte, as we'll talk about in the final episode and things like that. But so I get telling a backstory, and I do understand that we were spending so much time, to an extent, explaining the Jedi side of things that I'm like, can we not? Like, everything is Jedi in Star Wars, more or less. Like, can we do something different? And that was probably my biggest gripe with the overall series, where I was just like, I just want to focus on the Sith, But
I feel like so much stuff was dragged out. I feel like we were 4 episodes too long on this. We could have done 1, 2, maybe 3. And then gotten to episode 7, and episode 7 being and then episode 8 being episode 4. Like everything else that happened in between with episodes 4 through 6 was non-consequential. It was drawn out. Like you had our attention.
Hold on. Minus the part where Chimera shows up and kills all the Jedi.
Oh, well, yeah.
That had to happen at some point. Because as we've talked about, anyone who comes in contact with this dude has to die. That's just like, in order to keep things, timeline wise and narrative wise copacetic, everyone has to die more or less.
I just want to know where their head was when they thought it was going to be a good idea to kill them off that early on without episode 7's context.
Agreed.
Because that would have made those deaths so much more significant. I still feel like episode 7 wasn't enough to give that real consequential gut-wrenching hit. But if they did that and just let it build up to that point, that would have gone over so much better.
Yes.
And
it feels like these episodes were just out of order.
Very much.
And then there were things that it kept feeling like they kept trying to push like the Osha May connection and to make us get more attached to them. We're attached. You don't need to keep pushing the Osha May story. Like we get who they are. We get what they are. Their connection, like you've alluded to it this whole time, even way before we get to episode 7. So why we needed all this filler, this is what puts y'all in a hole with your fans. Episode 7 comes around and we're like, where the fuck has this been the whole time?
Yeah, straight up.
Where has this been to hold my attention? I'm invested now again. I'm interested. I'm not playing on my phone anymore because I'm bored at what's going on.
Obviously explained a lot, but it explained for the characters. It explained why the young Padawan ends up essentially, I forget the term, but there's a Jedi term where you essentially not go into hiding because that's more what the Wookiee did, but it's kind of like you're taking a vow of silence, and that's why he was doing he's been in the meditative state for years and stuff like that. That's there's a term in the Jedi lore that you'll take that vow and you essentially go off and you're not affecting anything good or bad. And then it also explained, I saw a video where they were talking about the reason that not just because of everything that happened with the calamity, if you will, of why the Wookiee ran away, it's also because when he was under control by the magic, he used his claws, and that's a big no-no in the Wookiee culture. That they do all this stuff, they'll rip people's arms off and whatnot, the jokes people make about Chewie and stuff, but they're not supposed to use their claws in battle. It's it's like a disgraceful act. And so on top of everything that happened, he realizes what he did to the young Padawan with the scrapes on his face and basically half blinds him. And so that's another reason why he goes into hiding. He feels, he needs to exile himself for everything that happened. But again, we're not getting any of this context until the second to last episode. Had we got earlier on, everything would have been made much more sense, would have been more emotional and consequential and all this kind of stuff. So, but I think we've talked enough about episode 7. Let's go ahead and jump to the finale here. A lot to unpack with the finale. I'm just going to go ahead and jump to my favorite part because it was only 10 minutes into the episode. This fucker right here. Woo! Darth Plagueis is in the house. I'm still so hyped about this. I'm sorry. I can't help it. Ashlyn knows. He showed up on the screen. You see the hand, and I'm just like, what the fuck is that? And he shows up, and I just start screaming, fuck yeah! Fuck yeah! Fuck yeah! I was so excited to see this because on top of everything else, like I mentioned to you, Brandon, I was excited that the look that they gave
was right. Yeah.
Is
100%
perfect in my opinion.
Absolutely.
It is exactly how he needs to look. It's exactly how he looked for the Legends stories and everything like that.
Which I'm glad that they went and captured that. I am glad that they looked and did their research on that. I will give them kudos.
And that's one of the things that I'd like to give credit to the director and one of the creators behind this story. Yes, there's been a lot of flack for this stuff, and we've talked about some negative stuff. She's mentioned multiple times that she was working on bringing Legends stuff in this. We didn't know what. And there's been a couple of things that they either talked about or alluded to or things like that, that whether we realize it or not are from Legends. Obviously the biggest one. That goes without saying. But the fact that they did this, yes, it's just a little cameo and everything like that, but it sets up so many interesting directions that a season 2 could take. And one of the things that I mentioned to Ashlyn that, and I know we talked a little bit last night, Brandon, where it's like we're torn on how we want this season 2 to go, or the continuation of this story to go. I do think that, so assuming that it just gets renewed as is, it'll still be called The Acolyte. That's fine. They need to just completely restructure the framework of storytelling in this.
100%.
We don't need it to be a mystery anymore. Yes, there will be mysterious aspects to it because of the Sith lore and the fact that we're introducing Plagueis and all this kind of stuff. Yes, there will be things not answered right away. I totally understand that. That's how a story works. But we don't need to do anything else with the whole murder mystery or, who done it, whatever you want to call it, type of storytelling is not necessary with the season 2. We need a complete overhaul of the feel for a season 2 in that regard. Before we continue on with any other story points, just focusing more on the Plagueis stuff, anything you want to mention, Brandon?
Yeah. So yes, just like you, I'm hyped, absolutely hyped to see him finally in live action. As small as a snippet as we got it, and that's we can now say he's canon, which is a fucking really cool thing to say. That said, I am a little torn, and the reason is I don't know if this was the right show to do it for. And I mentioned that before when we were talking about, Plagueis and Tenebris, possibly being this, which, by the way, kudos to you. You called it. I'll give you credit. You called this months ago. You were just like, they're leading up to Plagueis. They're leading up. And you were 100% right. I didn't want to say it because I said that about episodes 8 and 9. I was like, Snoke is Plagueis. Snoke is Plagueis. And,
fair enough.
So I got let down on that one. But I feel like with the introduction to him, they're going to have a very, very hard time with this, I feel. Take all the bullshit of the Acolyte aside. They just introduced a character who cannot die. I say that not like he's invincible, but according to the story, you cannot kill him off, which means if you bring him in, he has to stay secret because the Jedi can't know about him, but he is a massively powerful Sith Lord. So he has to stay in the shadows, figuratively, or, in this case, really. I mean, because we know Palpatine has to kill him. That's the arc here. And they really can't change that. I swear to God, if they do, I'm gonna be so mad.
Nah,
but they can't do that. That would destroy so much of what he is, and the point of his character. So knowing that, I am very antsy to know how they're going to play him into this, because if he can't, he can get into conflict, but we just have to know if somebody sees him, they have to die or they have to have a conspiracy that he doesn't exist. It's a very weird line that they have to play this on. I would have much rather preferred seeing some other series where it was, a Plagueis oriented show, or Origins of the Sith, or, whatever the case may be, or even a Palpatine show, with young Palpatine and his introduction into the dark side. I think they have a long road ahead of them, and it's going to be extremely bumpy now that they have introduced him. I'm still hyped as shit, but I'm also kind of settling into the realization of the fact that this might not be as good of a thing as we think it is for stories going forward in this sector of the Star Wars universe. It could be very, very rocky. So I'm scared to death that something's going to happen and they're going to mess it up. But I am hyped nonetheless to see him. It's really, really cool to see him on screen after, reading Wikipedia all my life and the whole lore behind him. It's really neat. So
yeah, I'm one of the, you joked about how I called it and everything like that. One of the things I'm glad that there was this back and forth on, and obviously my perceptions have changed as the show moved on. But there was all this talk of like, is Darth Teeth Plagueis? Or even could Chimere be Plagueis?
He was never Plagueis. The head wasn't right, bro. His head's like this big.
And that's the thing. It was like they would have had to completely change the character,
100%,
and that would have upset even more people. So I'm just so glad that that's not the route they took.
Me too.
Because otherwise it'd have to be like, even more so of a situation with Palpatine where like he gets really fucked up and somehow looks like an alien after everything that happens. But yeah, so I'm glad that that's not the route that they took. Ashlyn, I know you don't know a ton about Plagueis, so I'm not gonna jump to you.
I'm excited that y'all are excited,
and that's
thanks, Mom.
Thank you,
Mom.
So if you guys are this excited, I know it's gonna be good. I've only read Andrew's books of the Queen's Hope trilogy, so I've just only read the Padme books, so I haven't gotten into other Star Wars stuff because my TBR pile is longer than I'm going to be alive.
Well,
so
even though obviously it is Legends and they're not really going to adhere to it, I will read the Darth Plagueis book before we get a season 2 or a continuation or whatever we get with this new version of Plagueis. I know he'll show up in the second season or whatever. I don't know to what level. I really do feel like he's not going to be very forefront, even though they introduced him.
It's the only way they can do it right.
Yeah,
as much as I want to see him like full on just fucking shit up, it can't happen.
I don't think they can, and that's okay to a certain extent. We might still get something down the line more centered to him because of this, and that I think that
kind of be like him in his cave talking with Darth Teeth, and like Darth Teeth introducing Osha to him and everything eventually. Well, at some point
we got to see how this dynamic plays out, because I have a feeling that Plagueis there's a good chance that Plagueis is not happy about the whole Acolyte situation. It really depends on his. Obviously, the rule of two is the rule of two, but there is this little asterisk of with Legends and stuff like that of like this original Sith lore before the rule of two existed, that acolytes were a thing and they were very, very common. So it depends on his perception and his like the way he wants to take it, if you will, if he'll allow this to be a thing for his pupil to have an acolyte that's not necessarily a Sith apprentice, but more of like, I don't know if you want to say like an appendage of the Sith type of thing. That's like a continuation of the line and so forth. But that's more of a conversation for another day, because that could just go. Mm-hmm. I want to just mention real quick the wire work in this show, and like this episode in particular. We got some a little bit here and there sprinkled out throughout the series, but the wire work, like action sequences, what we got to see with the lightsaber battles, like between Soul and Chimere, was so good in this episode. The part when the two sabers are coming at him and he just force pushes everything away, I was like, oh god, that was awesome. That was such a great looking sequence. I've loved all that. They've really leaned into. That's one of the things that I really appreciated was when we got the action sequences. They were really leaning into the old school samurai kung fu-esque type films, and that have inspired Star Wars. It maybe not as abundantly as we realize, but Star Wars has always been a space western, and also taken notes from like Seven Samurai and the classic samurai films of yesteryear, or whatever you want to say. And so it was really cool to see more of those influences used in this type of thing. Either one of you have anything to say as far as the action sequences, the lightsaber battles?
The lightsaber battles in this, I will say the whole series were very, very well done. Very well done. That is by far my favorite thing about this whole series, was that something that I feel like the sequel really lacked was really, really good choreography. But and I'd probably get a lot of hate for saying this, but fuck it, these were up on par with the prequel levels of lightsaber duels. The choreography was very well done. And that's one thing, out of all my complaints that I've had about this show, I've said it to Kat more than a few times while we're watching. I was like, that's some top notch fucking choreography. Like they really put in the work for it. So I'll give the credit where it's due on that. Very well done.
I agree with everything you guys have said. The choreography is really cool. There were so many times that we were like sitting on the couch, just like, holy shit, that just happened. Or, oh my God, that was awesome. Like, so yeah, no. Choreography, the lightsaber battles, the things that they did, with the lightsabers and everything like that, just all of it was just so well done.
Yeah, it's like when they did things well, they did it really well.
Yeah.
It's just so many other things fell flat or were like mediocre or whatever you want to say that you kind of sometimes you forget about those types of things, or you have so many gripes about it that it's hard to see the light through the darkness in a sense, and that's why we got to kind of like restructure. At the end of the day, our judgment is our judgment, our opinions are our opinions. Well, that's not necessarily going to change, and I'm not saying we have to change, our rating, if you will, because we're like, oh yeah, this was fun and this was fun, but at the same time, appreciate where something is good, just where you're going to criticize when something is bad. But leading into that from the lightsaber battle, this was another like
I know where you're going.
Was this right here, the bleeding of the kyber crystal. We actually saw the kyber crystal bleeding as she killed, spoiler again, kills Saul by force choke. Now some people were like joking or not joking that like this might, I don't think it's the first person to die by force choke, but as far as a Jedi or something like that, but I think it's the first one we've seen live action of a Jedi actually dying by force choke specifically. So that, not that that really matters, but it is kind of interesting. However, as I was mentioning, the fact that we're seeing the whole time I thought at the last second she was going to run the blade through him and like it was just going to shoot red. I did not expect it for us to see that transformation, but actually seeing the crystal changing inside the lightsaber was, oh my God. When I tell you, as someone that like reads so many of the Star Wars novels and like gets real deep into the lore, to see that brought into live action is something that I am so excited for, because I know so many other people are probably confused as shit. And I get it to a certain degree, but at the same time, you shouldn't be. Like, I think you can understand even if you're coming from the outside, that like she's turning evil. Like it's pretty self-explanatory. You see the blade changing from blue to red, as that picture shows, but to see the gradual change, oh God, that was good. Because what some people probably don't realize from the Star Wars lore is how traditionally how a red kyber crystal is made is you kill a Jedi, you take their lightsaber and crystal, and the hatred in your heart and all the evil feelings of the dark side make the kyber crystal bleed and make that red color. And so we saw that in real time, and I'm just chef's kiss, honestly, for that moment. Ashlyn, do you have any thoughts on that particular scene?
The whole scene was phenomenal. Like seeing like you said, the kyber, the close up inside the chamber of the lightsaber, and seeing it start bleeding and then turning red, and seeing, for me, I really enjoyed seeing like a visual representation of her conflict with the blade fighting between going full red, because it was gradually going from blue to red and then start backing down a little bit and then it would keep expanding. So seeing her internalized conflict kind of shown in a visual aspect with the saber was so cool. I think, the whole, like that whole portion in her acting for that was so good. Like I said, I love a good dramatic scene, and just seeing her, like her going through the emotions, going through the force choke and everything, and just her coming to terms with the truth and what really happened, and then seeing the visual representation through the kyber and the lightsaber was just, like you said, chef's kiss. Like, just such a good scene. That's definitely going to be something that's like burned in my brain like I said, this episode really turned the tide for me on how I felt about this show, and that sequence in and of itself was a huge turning point.
Brandon?
Fantastic scene for sure. I think that that was something that was very overdue, excuse me, for Star Wars for a long time. Because you hear about it in Clone Wars, and you see that episode where they're building the sabers and such like that. But you're correct in the matter that there may not be a lot of fans out there that aren't really into the depth of the lore that might understand the significance behind what that was. And I think that is going to be a staple. That scene alone is going to be a staple in Star Wars going forward. I hope so, because it was gorgeous. The way that they did that was fantastic, 100%. The only thing I'll say in contradiction to that is I believe that the scene, leading up to that, it could have been done a little bit better. In the sense of like with Soul, as it goes kind of back to Soul's character. And just kind of how convoluted I guess he is as a character. But I feel like with regard to the overall story, that it was necessary for it to happen. But I think that I'll say it like this: with Soul, he kind of accepted it, but I don't see a Jedi accepting their pupil going to the Sith very well, And in that sense, to me, it feels a little convoluted. That it's like, why are because he accepted it. He said that he's he said it's okay. It's like, okay, no. To me, a Jedi ain't gonna do that. They're not gonna say, okay, it's okay, just turn to the dark side. They're gonna fight tooth and nail.
I want to say that he was mentally where the kid was when he accepted to kill himself.
100%
happen. He's been so mentally tortured for the last 16 years over this whole ordeal and everything that's happened that he's just like, this is, to a degree, he's like, this is what I deserve. You know what I mean? Like,
I see it from that standpoint, but going back to the fact that this is a Jedi master, that is very well versed in the arts, very well versed in everything that it means to be a Jedi. Doing that seems a way off to me for a character that is so highly respected in the Order, and you hear about that later on, right after this scene. But I just, that was my only thing, is like, what brought upon that scene. The scene was spectacular, but what brought it on was like, it does hold me back a little bit on the gravity of the whole ordeal. Which again kind of goes back to, I guess, my whole complaint about the whole series is just the story. Everything outside of the story has been really good. So
interesting concept, right?
yeah, it is. So
that's I mean, that's what I meant kind of like with that scene, is it's the actress Osha's and May's performance in that scene. Honestly, like, I really wanted to like Soul's character and like get some sort of attachment, but his acting style was just so deadpan for me a lot that like
to be fair, he learned English for this role.
That's
no, and it's it could be some of that. It's honestly the emotions in his face, and I don't know if that was like a direction from the directors.
I feel that, but with every fucking character in the Jedi in this show. Absolutely.
True.
Every single one of them.
No, the lack of emotion.
Absolutely.
The whole time, there's no emotion.
None.
Like, I think the most emotion that we get is probably from Soul in certain parts where he's trying to show, but at the same time, like, only other one that I think showed some emotion would be like Carrie-Anne Moss at certain points. And
there was the kid, I can't remember his name, the shirtless dude, whatever his name was. He showed some emotion in the first couple episodes.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you don't have emotion, you don't have personification, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I have this feeling that there's a lot of context that we're not getting from the way that the Order is in this particular point in time. And I've kind of touched on this like previously, that there's something in the story of the High Republic that we do not fully understand yet. And that's not our fault. It hasn't been given to us, but something has clearly changed within the era of the High Republic, to where the Order is so becoming rigid. And like, I mean, we have to get to the point where we get to the prequels where things are incredibly rigid, but not necessarily just focusing on emotions. But there is clearly, from everything I've heard about the High Republic, like if you go back like another 100 years from this particular point in time, there was a lot more free reign. There was a lot more like emotionality allowed, and like freedom to express and explore within the confines of their understanding of the Force. And now we're at this point in time where it is becoming super rigid and super like central focused, and even to the point where I think they're suppressing their emotions. And I think the senator kind of like
that's what I was gonna say. That's why like it ties into the senator where he's like, y'all are a fucking cult. Like
we need more context of like what the hell happened.
To be fair, I feel like you can still do that and still give the characters personalities. And I feel like that's really what's lacking in that whole scheme, you know?
Yeah.
You can make them soldiers, you know, which is kind of the mindset I feel like a lot of these Jedis are at, where it's like, and not in the sense of like a soldier's duty, but like how a soldier is trained to, you know, basically do what you're told without question. And that's kind of where I see all these Jedi are at. If I can get in their mind space. But you know, it seems to me that there's just a whole overall lack of personality more so than emotion.
Mm-hmm.
But the emotion, it ties in together, but
yeah.
But that's really what keeps me from latching onto a character. Like you said with Soul, Ashlyn. I mean, it's like, you know, I feel like Soul was a little too flawed to be more one of the central characters as well. And not necessarily in the sense that like you can't do that and make a good story, but it's the fact that it didn't fit for this, really, to me. I guess I may be the only one thinking that, but
when this whole series started, I thought he was going to be the Qui-Gon of the story. You know, like he was giving me that Qui-Gon vibes where he's like, he believes in the Force, but he kind of like differs from, you know, his understanding and his if you want to say his beliefs or whatever from the Jedi Council. He doesn't always adhere to what want. And then it kind of just took a left turn, like, and I was like, oh, maybe not.
I'll say too, like, I feel like his decisions, and really all the Jedi's decisions on what happened on that planet, is really kind of stupid. Like, you know, the reason that they chose to keep all this a secret, specifically Soul, was for a really stupid reason. Like, I don't see that he really did too much wrong aside from going after an underage girl, like, you know, as hard as he did. But like, you know, aside from that creepiness of like really trying to go after May / Osha, you know, he's not the one that killed the person, or he didn't make the first attack. You know, the first attack was done when what's her name turned herself into a cloud of smoke and entered Torben and you know, tortured him, essentially literally mentally tortured him. And once they realized that, it kind of kicked the light switch. Like, you know, I see what they did more as an act of self-defense. And I just don't know, like, if you really did something as an act of defense, why are you trying to cover it up instead of come clean when it could have all been prevented? It, you know, it leaves a lot more questions for me, I guess.
The explanation of that it ties into the whole that they're two of one person split into two, and that it has to do with the divergence in the Force from this planet, and how that like they would have taken her away and I guess experimented on her or whatever he thinks that they would have done is not really enough of an explanation for, like you said, to justify their actions.
Yeah, it just really isn't to me. I mean, and even if it was the case, you know, I don't know. There's so many questions even now after it, and and just the.
It's just that linchpin of he sees her, gets attached to her. That's how this starts.
Yeah, but it's like, and then why get attached to start off with? Like, there was nothing really to get attached with. He just kind of did with no explanation. It was just really odd to me. And again, goes back to this to the story. Like, there's so much of this that I feel like they could have X'd and had at least 2 episodes more to explain a little bit more of this.
Yeah.
And now, if there is going to be a season 2, they're going to have to do that in that season, or just forget it ever happened. And that doesn't really sit right with me. Like, I don't know. Plagueis and the saber battles aside, I just take those 2 things out of the equation. And this, to me, was a very, very, very lackluster show. So, yeah.
I don't see them in season 2 going back to explain these things.
Yeah.
Like going back into the coven. It's just like, well, here's the coven. We have no idea how this virgin's happened. Everyone's trying to cover up the fact that there's a virgins. I think they're going to just continue to keep trying to cover it up, except for whatever, not Luminara.
Because of this lady. Show.
Yeah, that lady.
Gonna pop up.
Yeah.
There it goes.
That's right. Earless Yoda.
This bitch. No, I'm just kidding.
I feel like she's going to keep pursuing whatever she's trying to figure out about the virgins now that she knows it exists with Yoda, but that's going to be the only thing. I don't think we're ever going back to the planet. We're not talking about the coven or anything else other than to do
green
with the
person talking to green person. That's what she's
right. Green on green action.
So other than whatever Yoda's about to get mixed up in with this whole thing, because now we just have her repeating the same thing that Soul and everyone that was on the planet did, is just make it go away. These 2 girls don't exist. We're trying to do this all under the cloak of, hiding everything. But somehow Yoda's going to get pulled into this in season 2. But other than that, we're just repeating the same mistakes of just trying to hide everything.
Well, I'm glad that
they don't want the Senate involved.
Sorry, I'm glad that we finally got the explanation of a little bit of an explanation as to why she has so much skin in the game and why she's deciding to do some things that she's done or say some things that she said throughout the series, because we find out that Chimere was her Padawan or a previous Padawan or something. She's been around. Yes, I know. I called that too. That she's been around. Her character has been around for a long time. Apparently, they live, I'm assuming, at least a couple hundred years. So she's had, I'm sure, a couple different Padawans over the course of her life. I know a little bit about her character because I've read up a little bit on her, and this would explain to a certain degree why her character has such a drastic change from everything that is talked about her in the novels and the decisions that she makes and the life that she chose as a Jedi, if you will, versus the version of her that we see in this live action show. And we're like, what the hell happened? Now we have an idea. Like, she had a Padawan essentially go to the dark side or whatever, but she must have tried to cover it up. And everyone talked about when they saw the scar on his back, that once they got a glimpse of her Jedi, her lightsaber whip, they're like, pretty sure that's where that came from. And now we have confirmation that most likely that's what happened. So I'm very intrigued on that. As we joked about, at the very end, you get that sort of post-credit scene where she shows up to talk to Yoda. That, I know some people are going to be upset about that. That does not surprise me in the slightest.
No,
Yoda is a fucking sneaky fucker, man. There's so many things. Because I even talked to Ashlyn, even when you go to the prequels and stuff like that, obviously at that point they're fully ingrained in the Senate. So, but they're still trying to hide stuff from the Senate and trying to internalize things and hide certain things, even when they were first learning that a Sith could exist, with Darth Maul and all this kind of stuff. And they're just trying to keep it hush hush. And I'm just I'm not surprised in the slightest that Yoda knows something about this, because first of all, he's one of the most powerful Jedi to ever exist. So if he's around, which we knew he would be because he's alive, so he's around in some capacity, he would probably know something, even a little bit of what is going on or what happened with her and her ex Padawan. So, Brandon, what did you think of this whole thing playing out and us finding out the connections between this character and Chimera?
It was pretty expected. There wasn't really a whole lot of shock. There was no shock at all with that. I mean, because it was either his master was Plagueis or wait, he said he had a Jedi master. So yeah, it would have just been her. Yeah,
well, I thought there was a small chance that I thought she could have been his master, like the Sith master. There was a point in time where I was like, she could end up being the actual Sith.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm kind of glad that that's not the case.
But yeah, me too. But yeah, it kind of stems to me like there was nothing. There's no setup really there. I mean, anyone could have seen it coming from a mile away that was where it came from, because that's the only other Jedi that they honed in on being anything remotely relevant. Yeah. So, not a lot of setup there. So it was kind of flat when it came to that reveal. But I will say, with regard to Chimera, kind of going off a little bit of this, but I felt like with his character, he's a very, very convoluted character. Like, you don't know what he's really about. Is he, there's times it doesn't even feel like he's dark, it doesn't feel like he's a Sith, or so he calls himself. It doesn't feel like it at all. It feels like he's trying to be the good guy by, alternative means, almost like a mercenary in a sense, but it feels so weird. Like, everything about his character
very much like the Ben Solo vibes, with like the conflict between Ben and Kylo, and especially that last scene where he's like holding her hand. I was like, oh shit, here we go. It's gonna be another Kylo Rey.
Yeah, I didn't feel too great about that one. I was just like, we didn't need that.
Yeah, it definitely seems like they're gonna be pushing some sort of a romantic story. Like, I hope that's not the case. Like, I really hope they don't go down that road, because it definitely feels like a Kylo Rey situation just repeating itself.
Yeah. Which, let's also keep in mind as well that, this motherfucker has tried to kill Osha how many times, and now he wants to be buddy. Mm-hmm. And, you could easily explain that away by saying, oh, well, yeah, May turned against him, so he's going to go after, the sister and try to turn the sister. But then he let May go instead of killing May. It's like, yeah. the writing for him is so bad. Like, just so bad. And
I think it's just that we still need further explanation of his character and his motivations. And I think we're going to probably, if we get the continuation, that's when we'll get it, because there's been a lot of talk about the fact that there are like things being alluded to. There's even the fact that 2 different times that he shows up, Kylo Ren's like theme plays in the background, like very faintly and stuff like that. I have this feeling that he's going to end up being more of like one of the original like Knights of Ren part of the lore. I don't think he's going to be like a full-on traditional Sith by the time we get to this. But the problem is, like y'all are saying, is we don't have that context right now.
Yeah, it was writing for this season. I mean, start to finish, you don't have this with other Star Wars shows, where you have so many, you'll have questions to answer after every season, of course, for every show, Star Wars or not. But the amount that we've had for this is just kind of ridiculous. It's
like they said
you can't explain it away
automatically that it was going to be like a 3-season story arc. But you know what I mean?
That's biting off way more than you can chew, and they should have focused on one to the next list, just like the Mandalorian. You know,
it's like you can have a storyline set in place, but you need to be able to make sure that the groundwork is solid.
Absolutely,
that's where you start, and then you just build, kind of like you said, like the Mandalorian they did.
Yeah,
because I mean, I would say when you get through season 1, obviously we're hoping something's going to, but we don't know where the hell that was going past that point, because it kind of felt that it could almost be done after season 1 to a certain degree. Like if it never got a season 2,
I feel like is really good for the writing. You know, if you do that and you cap it, even a soft cap, it's enough for people to be okay with if you don't come back to it again.
Right.
Yeah.
Right now, if with all, not only just the plot holes that they've opened, but but all of the other all just everything, man. I mean, it's too much. It's too much for anybody who really is like hard into this series to just be like, yeah, I'm okay if we never come back to this. There's
the one thing I
way
wanted
too much
about the Chimera thing. I know that y'all were saying that you kind of back and forth on him. I actually think like the actor himself, I think he did a pretty damn good job. Like I've liked what he's done with what yes, the they're not explaining enough. There's still a lot of questions and things like that, but I don't know what it is. I've enjoyed this actor's, you know, portrayal or whatever you want to say of this character so far. Don't ask me why. I just do.
Mm-hmm.
There's just something about him that I guess because it's that I don't think it's that he's torn between the dark and the light. I think it's more like he's becoming that really good. I'm hoping he's becoming that really good villain where they're doing it because they think it's, you know, it's the right thing to do, or that they're
it definitely seems the way that they're going.
And I think that's the direction they're going versus a you know, a conflict internally like the Ben Solo thing. Like we've had that plenty of times before. We don't need that again. And we even just had it again with the whole, you know, with the with the sisters. And so we don't need anything else like that. So I'm hoping that that's essentially what we're getting to is like, you know, like a Thanos situation. And these things is like, there's things where you're like, yeah, there's some justification as to the things you're doing. And I kind of understand your point of reference of why you're going the way you're going. And those are the best villains out there. And so I'm hoping that's what we're getting to. And that's what I'm feeling so far. So I'm hoping I'm right on that sense. But yeah, a lot, like we've said, a lot to unpack just from this episode alone. Anything else y'all want to touch on about the season finale, or anything you hope to see from a continuation before we call it a day?
I was shocked as shit how they did the whole Osha and May and the flip of moving Osha to being the Acolyte, not Osha becoming the Acolyte, but May's reaction to it. Because I was ready.
Yeah.
Like, I was shocked when she's like, it's fine. You can wipe my memory and she can take my place. For season, it's just been May. Like, you can tell that May feels like she is second best. She is second rate to Osha. And I was waiting for her to, like, throw a temper tantrum and just be pissed as hell that Osha's always the favorite. Osha's getting picked again. She's taking my place. I was fucking shocked that they went down this road of and her being okay with it and being like, it's fine, just wipe my memory and everything.
It's because they flipped the personalities. It's because now she's the light and Osha's the dark and everything like that.
I know, but that's still that.
No. I'm not saying that it justifies everything.
Yeah.
That's just essentially what they did. And they're like, well, she's essentially good now for whatever reason. And so she's accepting her sister. Like, okay, great. She's growing up, but it was like, you know, very steep difference from everything we've seen so far.
Well, it's kind of like what Osha said. She's finally becoming what May always wanted her to be. So May is kind of taking that back seat now and being like, okay, because this is who I want my sister to be. And I don't know if it's just something in the back of her head that she's like, even if I don't have my memories, you know, Osha said, I'll always find you and somehow I'll get my memories back. And this is all playing into what May has always wanted the whole time. But I'm very interested to see where we pick up May in season 2 with the green lady. I always forget her name because I don't think she's going to be as much of a big focus in season 2, but I definitely know she'll be there in some capacity. And I'm just so interested to see where they're going to take that in the pursuit of trying to understand the Virgins and the 2 girls and everything like that.
Did anybody else think that when they hugged that Osha was going to run her through? Because I did. Like, I thought we were going to have another like Han Solo situation, like when they were hugging and crying and you know she was like accepting and everything like that. There was just this small part of me that was like, rather than have her sister lose all her memories and everything like that, that she was just going to like run her through with the blade or something like that. I was like waiting for it. I don't know that it would have been the right choice, but I just, for some reason, I kept waiting for that to happen.
Yeah.
Brandon, real quick, I know you mentioned earlier, you said you wanted to say something about the whole Senate situation.
Yeah, that could have changed everything, man. Honestly, for this whole show, yeah, I feel like if they had introduced so much more for the Senate, tied it in with what we see in episode 1, 2, and a little bit of 3 with the Senate's interaction with the Jedi, it would open up so much more with this whole thing. And I feel like they screwed the pooch on that one. Honestly, I wanted to see more of that. I wasn't really, and that's the funny thing too, as I wasn't really a big fan of that sort of stuff in the prequels. But knowing that it's there, seeing that we've had contact with a senator from the Jedi, a senator, I'm sorry, with the Jedi, and seeing that it is a very integral part, if not the most integral part of where we're at right now on Coruscant. I feel like to not even see the Senate is kind of I don't know. Well, again, yeah, I know we could save that for later, huh?
I'm sorry, I was going to say, to be honest, it's actually the opposite. This is just now starting to get to the point where the Senate is trying to be like overly involved with the Jedi. Sure. Up until this point, the Jedi has been a self-sufficient, like self-governed, if you will, entity separate from the Senate. We're just now getting to the point where things are starting to blend to get us to the prequel era where it is one and the same, type of thing.
But I feel like we should have gotten at least a little bit more than just one interaction with one senator. True. Or 2 interactions with one senator. It strikes me as odd because you see a lot more of that, even in Legends. I mean, it's I don't know. If they're pulling from it, then I'd say pull from it and make it good, but that was a big thing that I was really hoping to see a little bit more of, even like an ending shot with like the whole Senate and all the chairs or something, it's something more. But yeah, I'll say overall, just with the Acolyte in general, writing aside, the thing I think I don't like the most is the Acolyte themselves, Osha and May. Writing aside, I would say that's probably it, because it's holding it back for me. If with what all that they've opened for the future, if there is a future, because again, we don't know what's going to happen, but if there is a future, they need to move past the Acolytes themselves. And that's going to be really hard to do when that's the show, that's the name of the show. Because I like the universe that they've opened. I think that it's a great time period. But with how much that they've shoved out so far, to keep circling back to the sisters is going to hold it back big time. Or they're just going to have a lot of plot holes that they can't fill, not in the increments of the season or the episodes per season that they're doing. I just don't see it. I don't see a bright future with this, but I'm very hopeful that there is. I really am. So
yeah,
that's kind of my
feel
alt.
What you're saying. Like, I feel like they'd have to find a way to kind of wrap up the sisters' story in one more season, if they could do that, and then maybe we'll just get like a spin-off, like we said, like of a Plagueis story, or maybe a continuation of Chimere and Plagueis, I don't know, type of thing. I don't know what direction they want to go in that sense, but one way or the other, we need them to at least do one more season. We got to find a way to bring this full circle, in a sense, even if it doesn't close all the doors. If we can just get a little bit of closure on a couple of things, I think it could right the ship in a few different ways that needs to be done. I don't want this to be taken completely off the tracks, and maybe in a couple years we get a book that fills in the gap, because no matter what people say or how people feel about this, is canon now. this is part of the canon. It is part of the Star Wars universe, and it is never not going to be, more or less, part of that universe. So we need some sort of an explanation. I'd just rather it not be a comic book or a novel or something.
Absolutely.
Like that. We need it in the visual spectrum that, we started in. And so I hope we get that. But I think that's going to be it. I think, we always like talking real heavy about the Star Wars stuff, and the Acolyte in particular is a lot to talk about. So
I was just going to agree with you guys and say the same thing. For me, where I honestly, if they're not long-winded with this shit and drag it out like they did with this first season, they could honestly wrap up the twins story in half a season and then start bridging the other half into the Plagueis Chimera story and like whatever else it is they're trying to tell. I definitely don't think we need to drag even, like, say they get another 8 episodes. They could wrap this shit up in 4 episodes easily for the twins and like whatever their story is, and like, the Virgins, and figure out whatever that is. 4 episodes, talking like close to 4 hours, that's enough time to do all that and get that wrapped up and start. Because you've laid all the groundwork. You've got people reinterested in this now by episode 7 and 8. There's a lot more story here. So you've done your groundwork. Wrap that shit up in 4 episodes and then move on to whatever it is you're trying to get to with Plagueis and Chimera and that part, and the Senate going in, like bring that shit more in with the senator that's trying to get the Senate involved as an oversight for the Jedi. Start going into that shit.
Yeah, agreed. What would you guys score it out of 10 if you had to for the whole series?
Like a 5.
Andrew?
Yeah, I'm probably right there. I'd say maybe a 5.5 at the highest.
I thought I was going to offend somebody with my score, bro. Y'all are right there with me. Damn.
Yeah, I would love to. The highest I could give it is a 6.
Yeah,
I'll be honest. Like, if I was being generous, the highest I could give it is a 6. So I'm gonna go with a 5.5.
I was gonna say 4, and I was expecting some backlash. That's why I let y'all go first. But yeah, no, 4. It was. I was thinking about this a lot at work for some reason, but yeah, 4, probably about 4.7 for me. And it again, I kind of had
specific.
Well, yeah, I like trying to getting a little bit more specific with it, because it's like there's so much to unpack here. But my reasoning, again, it all goes back to storytelling. You can have the best lightsaber battles. Glad we had them. Those are awesome. You can have the best, lore accurate stuff, such as the kyber crystal turning and everything. It's like those scenes were awesome. Having Plagueis was awesome, even for 2 seconds. But it was awesome to see all of that finally. But you can't have all of that the way it's supposed to be without good narrative, without good story, without good characters. And having that much fall flat, I can't feel right putting it higher than that. I just can't. So
that's fair. I mean, there's a lot of issues with this. It's like, I feel like we can all see the long game, right? We can see what they're trying to get to, but like Andrew said, you didn't set up your groundwork right.
It's classic biting off more than you can chew.
Yep. Had you done this shit in the right way and put the episodes in the right order, not added so much filler, not drug everything out, I think we would have been in much better shape.
This was a Snyderverse version of the Star Wars.
Pretty much, bro. Pretty much.
Where it's just like, hey, I'm gonna rush to the Justice League.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. But
yeah, I get it. I'm right there.
But yeah, so like I said, lot to talk about, and I'm sure many people will be talking very in depth about this series for quite a while, especially considering it's going to be a little bit before we have anything else live action Star Wars. I think the next series to come out is the Skeleton Crew, and I don't even know if we have a date for that yet. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with Star Wars going forward. But at the end of the day, we have plenty of movies, we have plenty of series, we have plenty of extended lore from books and everything else. So there's always something to enjoy within the Star Wars universe. So, you know, if you enjoy this universe, seek that stuff out. There is something for everybody. Let's go ahead and call it a day. Before we do, Ashlyn, let the people know where they can find you.
As always, you can find me on TikTok, Instagram at BookBrat90. Again, hopefully by the next show, we'll have some vacation videos up from our trip to Vegas as soon as my video editor gets to work. And we'll be doing some other stuff around the house. We've been working on some projects in here I'm going to be posting about and sharing. So if home reno is your thing, possibly it's going to be cool.
And Brandon, how about you?
Venture Authentics got a few shows lined up. A lot coming up after, let's see, starting in about September is when we're going full force con season. Fall season is con season. But until then, we have 2 in August. So back-to-back weekends. So it's going to be fun.
Nice. And of course, you can follow me on pretty much all socials at Andrew. This is Andrew R Music again. I didn't even realize that. That is not my thing. So I'm going to take that off. I cannot believe that's been up here the entire time.
Oh my God, that's funny.
It is Andrew is losing. I don't even know where that came from. That's like my old name tag, long time ago. Anyway, be sure to subscribe to the channel here at Retroactive POD. We're dropping more stuff, shorts on YouTube, TikTok, things like that, going more into our collective side of things. So if you're interested in like statues, collectibles, things of that nature, be sure to check that out. Other than that, though, keep an eye out for upcoming videos. We'll definitely be doing one after Deadpool and Wolverine. It'll probably be maybe a couple days later, but we're all going to see it, so it's definitely going to happen. So with that, we're going to call it a day. Thank you guys for coming. We'll see you next time.